Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. They'll be talking about a pair of Troy art professors, Troy professors who have an exhibit at the Johnson Center for the Arts. And I got confused there for a second because we do talking about art, but you're not necessarily associated with art here on campus, Diane. But Diane Orlofsky, Jerry Johnson. Let's talk a little about this exhibit at the Johnson Center, because I mentioned it is an art exhibit, but a lot of people associate you with music here on campus, but you have done some writing, and that's where all this falls into place, right?
That's where it all started. Yeah, the exhibit is called The Art of Collaboration, A Joyous Exchange. Back in 2011, I began writing a series of meditations, actually over a 4-year period. And after I'd written quite a large grouping of them, and they were about life issues, grief, loss, memory, also the art of making music with choirs, which is what I do here at Troy. So I asked my colleague Jerry to illustrate the meditations. And it became very apparent very quickly after seeing the first one that they really didn't need to be limited to a book size, which is what we were originally going for, but it actually needed to be mounted to a full-scale art exhibit.
So it's expanded from the book to being displayed on a wall, which is what, you know, Jerry, you're usually accustomed to seeing your work probably displayed in that form. And so, but how does it to make that transition from what you thought originally was just going to be illustrating a book to now producing what's art that's going on the wall?
Well, typically illustration is supplemental to text or photography. There's just an illustration to enhance the written word. I showed Diane when we had our first initial meeting, I showed some of the current work that I was doing in digital art, and she really liked that, and she gave me the freedom to be inspired by her work. And then we had our follow-up meeting. We decided to maybe not go the route of a specific illustration, but maybe go illumination, since they are spiritual metaphors. And it kind of goes back to illuminated Bibles and manuscripts. So we went with that, and actually we made it very organic. And to be honest with you, it's one of the few times in my life I've had a true co-creative experience where I allow her to kind of give me feedback on the art. And back and forth have been very reciprocal with her. Her meditations are already written, but I think even after we see these interpretations, there are these illuminations in digital art form. They're about 20 inches square. They can go larger, but for the sake of the exhibit, we put them in kind of a nominal size. And there's 13 pieces that we've come up with that have their in tandem with a written meditation that are also beautifully designed to go along with the motifs and the elements that are within the art piece itself.
And of course, and that's part of what I'm thinking is it originally set out as a book, written words with illustrations, but now it's up on a wall. And so how do you incorporate those written words and the illustrations together in an art piece?
Well, some of the illuminations and the narrations are very, they're very tied to each other. So you would read it and you go, oh, there's the elements in what I've just read. Some of them are highly symbolic. And so there are many, many layers of meaning when you look at it and you read the meditation and you say, oh, but then, but I also see this. And so that people can bring, I think, their own experiences to it. I'm with Jerry, just finished year 29 here. This is truly the most collaborative thing, co-creative thing that I've ever had a chance to do.
And you keep mentioning co-creative. Jerry said it, you said it, and the inspiration went both ways. You mentioned that briefly, but were you led to kind of change some things after you saw some of the work he did?
Absolutely. I would see a particular thing that he would do, and I went, oh my gosh, there are so many meanings there. Let me go back and reread what I wrote and then perhaps add to it, flesh it out with something else that I've read. And so, yeah, it was organic, and it kept growing, changing.
And do you think seeing this on display maybe might guide a different way for the actual book when it's published? Are we going to see maybe some different inspirations from when now that you've actually seen this exhibit on the walls?
Yeah, I think we want to expand it. There'll be new things that will be written, perhaps bring in an educational piece, because we can very much see, we're educators. We can also see how teachers could use this in their own classrooms.
You know, I think the meditations in their own right are beautifully written, and they're heartfelt, and they're deep meanings involved. And then the artwork, I think has its own voice that's kind of deep and symbolic and interesting, and they're connected. But the beauty that I think this might lead to is more of the discipline of collaboration and co-creation. Collaboration exists in the world all the time, but usually it's you as a specialist and you as a specialist, we get together, we all go do our thing, get back together and finish a product. But we've actually allowed each other to speak into each other's discipline. And it's a little scary because we're territorial, but the product is something beautiful. I think it's blossoming into something that we don't even know where it's going to lead to, but we do think that the book would not be just about the process, but it will have a big section about co-creation and what does that really mean, especially in this creative environment we live in.
Well, good. Well, if anyone's interested in seeing it, it's on display at the Johnson Center for Arts until...
It's from now until the end of July.
July. All right. Well, here's hoping folks go check out this collaborative effort between the two of you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Aaron.
And thank you for joining us on today's edition of Trojan Talk. Okay. Bingo. Awesome.
We laugh.